Wasabi Wallet. Unfairly private.
What's up, everyone? I'm Ben with the BTC Sessions, and this is your daily session.
Hodl that Bitcoin.
Before we dive in, of course, I've got to give a big shout out to sponsors of the show, LEDN.io. They have a variety of services which you can use your Bitcoin for. I've personally been using them for quite some time, both for their loans and now dabbling in their B2X product. And they've always been quick and responsive and excellent to work with. I've also interviewed Mauricio multiple times on the show. And he, coming from Venezuela, he has a very unique perspective on what makes Bitcoin important. So they have their Bitcoin savings accounts where you can earn interest on your Bitcoin. They've got Bitcoin backed loans where you can use your Bitcoin as collateral to obtain a Canadian or US dollar loan. So if you're in a spot where you need to get your hands on dollars, which I was a year and a bit ago, and you don't want to sell your Bitcoin because you think it might be a bad time, well, this could be an option for you. And it definitely saved me in a time where I would have sold at a terrible price and would not have been able to repurchase that Bitcoin back. It was easy enough for me to pay back the loan in dollars, but I definitely would have been losing sats had I been forced to sell. And then finally, they've got their B2X offering. This essentially, you deposit Bitcoin as collateral, obtain a loan, and it instantly buys more Bitcoin for you. So you essentially are doubling your Bitcoin, and with that, you experience the price fluctuations along with that, with double the amount of Bitcoin. So be sure to check them out. There is a link in the show notes down below. And actually, if you opt to get a Bitcoin backed loan with that link, they'll credit you with an additional $50 worth of Bitcoin into your account. Secondly, we have Ryze Wallet. These are physical Bitcoin gift cards that you can pick up at a store near you. These things are super awesome and great for new users. The way it works is you pick it up at the store, gift it to anybody. On the back of the card, they're instructed to download the paired app and scratch and scan the code. This creates them a brand new Bitcoin wallet on their phone and then sends them an on-chain transaction for the face value of the card. These are super easy and super idiot-proof. Again, great for onboarding brand new users to Bitcoin. So be sure to check them out, ryzewallet.com. There's a button in the top right, locations, where you can see where you can pick them up. If they're not currently near you, they are looking at expanding more throughout Canada. They're only in Canada right now, but they're looking at expanding elsewhere in the near future. So be sure to keep an eye out. With that, let's dive into the news. So it is an absolute bloodbath, and it was over the weekend for Bitcoin, but this has extended deeply into traditional markets as well. So we're going to take a look at both and what is going on. Bitcoin has dipped well into the 7,000s. I've seen as low as 7,600 so far today. By the time this is uploaded and viewable, that could be an entirely different story, but we will see. So what's up with the drop? Well, I mean, it's hard to put in an exact point at exactly what happens as with most instances, but one thing that is likely contributing is the PlusToken scam. So this was a scam out of China that's been going for quite a while. It did get shut down by authorities, but a number of people were not pinched and still are holding on to the Bitcoin that they obtained through this Ponzi scheme and are dumping it on the markets. We've seen we have people online that are tracking the movements of these coins, and usually when there's large movements in said coins, it ends up with a dump on exchanges. And so that's kind of what we saw previously in July and again towards, what was this, kind of fall last year. And we're seeing it again now. So they have around 13,000 Bitcoin or $210 million worth of Bitcoin. So there's quite a lot to be sold there. we've seen lots of whale dumping, millions in Bitcoin on various exchanges. So Bitmex experienced at one point a nearly $22 million sale of Bitcoin at the 7845 level. Now, this did result in further selling, but there was some buying down at the low end in the 7,700. Somebody bought up 4 million. So it could be a matter of either just people buying the dip, some whales buying the dip, or it actually could be these whales themselves rebuying what they've already sold at a lower price. But it's kind of hard to tell. Regardless, it seems a lot of the selling initially at least came from these PlusToken scammers that have a lot to unload. And then that translated to some people perhaps panic selling as well. Now, there is a fear and greed index when it comes to crypto market sentiment, and right now we are placed firmly in the fear realm. We're at a score out of 17 out of 100 being super greedy and 0 being super fearful. So that is basically, it is extreme fear. Now, just yesterday we were at a 33, last week we were at a 38, and last month we were at a 52. So does this mean that we're at a bottom? It's anybody's guess, but it is definitely shaking out some of the weaker hands. Now, if you look at the fear and greed sentiment history over time, where we're sitting right now is very much in line with the end of 2019. So in December, it also lines up with kind of the drops in fall of last year. And kind of like the summer after that huge run up in June, we saw some major drops in the greed and fear index, and put us deeply into the fear realm. So we'll see how that progresses. But I mean, there's only so much further that the fear index can drop. But that doesn't mean that the price can't follow lower. Now, when we look at traditional markets, yeah, it has been a wild day, and this was kind of foreshadowed by the futures markets through the weekend, which were looking awful. At one point this morning, shortly after they opened the stock market, the circuit breaker was triggered and all trading was halted because it dipped lower than 7% across the markets. This was stopped for 15 minutes and then came back online. There was a little bit of a bounce back up, but we seem to be down across most stocks quite significantly. So I'm just going to refresh right here just to double check. Yeah, like the Dow Jones is down 2,087 points at the time of recording this. S&P is down 213, NASDAQ is down 600, NYSE is down 1,011, and that's ranging anywhere from kind of the mid 8% range, between 7 to around 8.5% across a lot of the major indices. So it's pretty wild. Obviously, some of the stuff causing this is, it's a no-brainer. Coronavirus is deeply playing into this. Travel is being restricted. Italy is essentially quarantining large portions of its population. The U.S. seems to be kind of dragging its heels and not doing very well when it comes to testing. And then outside of that, you've also got an oil price war, which just flared up. And so what happened was Russia came out and went to OPEC and said, "Hey, we're not actually going to try and stop producing as much oil as we'd like to keep the prices at a decent level. We're actually just going to produce the hell out of it, and we're going to drop our prices." After which Saudi Arabia did not like that as a member of OPEC, and they since dropped their prices. And it was just a domino effect, and so crude prices were pulling back like 30% in some cases. It was absolutely insane. Or sorry, rather 20% in some cases. And it doesn't look like it's going to be resolved anytime soon. Now, the worst part about this is that places like where I'm from, it's very, very expensive for us in Alberta to extract oil, and therefore I'd say the economy in my area of Canada is going to be deeply impacted by that. So yeah, I mean, and what is the Fed doing? What is the establishment doing to kind of stop the bleeding here? Well, one of the things is they're planning on injecting even more money into the overnight repo markets. So their offerings that will be in the overnight operations are going from 100 billion to 150 billion through Thursday this week. I'm guessing that's going to go longer than Thursday. I'm guessing that's going to be extended. And beyond that, they already did an emergency rate cut of 50 basis points or 0.5%. And people are projecting that by summer, they're going to be at a 0% interest rate, basically coming into line with a lot of the world. And some are projecting negative interest rates within the year, which is unbelievable. That's a situation where you get into where for the privilege of lending somebody your money, they take some of it, which is ass backwards as hell. But this is the financial system we're living in. So let's step back from the panic a little bit. And the idiocy that are traditional markets. And yes, Bitcoin price is following them. Now, whether or not it's because of financial markets or it's the PlusToken scammers dumping, or it's a combination of two, and the drop from the PlusToken scammers as well as the panic in traditional markets kind of through osmosis seeping into the bones of some long-term Bitcoiners, causing them to sell, it remains to be seen. But how is Bitcoin actually still functioning in comparison to the headlines? Well, I mean, if you look at the hash rate over the past, even like just through the bear market, let's look from the beginning of 2018, and it's gone from 20, what is this? This is terahashes, from 20 terahashes to it recently hit an all-time high of around 136 terahashes. That's 136 quintillion hashes per second, which is a fuck ton. It's a lot. Anyways, the network is becoming more and more secure, and miners are continuing to pile in, regardless of the fact that the rewards for mining are going to be cut in half with the halving in just shy of around 2 months from now, about 60 something days. I'm not quite sure. And with that, the mining difficulty just today actually jumped up by around 7%. And so what that indicates is that despite the cut in reward that is looming, miners are continuing to bet and pile in and add hash rate to the network. And for them, they see it as a good and sound investment. So very interesting to see that. On the software side of things, Bitcoin continues to iterate and grow. The newest version of Bitcoin Core was just released today. It's a minor release with some bug fixes and upgrades and everything, but it continues to grow more and more reliable over time. And when you look at price action, one of the things I like to refer to is the stock to flow model put forth by Plan B. And there's a live feed of that and where the price is tracking in relation to this potential model for modeling the price of Bitcoin in relation to stock to flow, which is stock being the outstanding Bitcoin that are currently available and tradable on the market versus the flow of new Bitcoin into the system, which would be mined Bitcoins coming in every 10 minutes for each block. And so when you look at the stock to flow over the course of time, you can map those data points and get a pretty good co-integrated model that is in line with models that are used to measure the price and project the price of something like gold. Now, some of those stock to flow measures for gold, they have about 99% co-integration. This model for Bitcoin is around 95%, which is super impressive for 11 years of data. So what does it say right now? Well, right now, with us sitting at 7,800, in and around about, well, in the mid 7,000s, stock to flow has us at a fair value of around 8,300 in and around. So we're actually below stock to flow right now. But the way that stock to flow works is that it doesn't track it exactly, but it acts as kind of like an elastic band. So it tends to rebound back to that medium. And so over time, we've seen it go above and below, above during the bull markets and below during the bear markets. But right now, we're about to experience an increase or a decrease in the stock to flow very, very soon with the halving. And with that, the fair market price of Bitcoin goes from kind of the low 8,000s over the next year to close to 100K, which sounds pretty ridiculous and insane. But if the model holds up, that's where the projection goes. And Bitcoin price tends to lag stock to flow a little bit and then overshoot in the end. So we will see if that happens. But from that model's perspective, we're pretty much still right in line with where we should be. We haven't deviated very far from it. The model definitely is not broken. So we will see moving forward what happens there. Now, if you want some more insight into kind of what's going on in global markets, I highly recommend that you check out Tales from the Crypt, Marty Bent's newsletter called The Bent. It's excellent, and today's is no exception. He does a good breakdown of what's happening with the oil markets, what's happening with coronavirus and interest rates and all of the stuff that's been going on. It's absolutely insane. I highly recommend you read it, and I'll include it in the show notes below. I just wanted to, I guess, kind of wrap up to kind of get people's minds right and not get too emotional at the moment. But I did want to reiterate, in the face of everybody trying to fix global markets and the Fed stepping in saying, well, we're going to inject more billions into the market. We're going to print more money. We're going to cut rates to zero, and we're going to go negative rates. And all of these people that did the exact same thing for the last financial crisis, and it only served to exacerbate problems. The best part about Bitcoin, and this is what I put on Twitter today, the best part about Bitcoin is that regardless of what's going on in the world, no one can swoop in with a new plan to quote unquote fix it. 21 million of them, halving just around the corner, and no amount of panic will change that. And I think that's awesome. So in the face of the insanity that's happening around the world, and even though Bitcoin has taken a good little dip these past few days, the protocol and the underlying monetary policy remain unchanged. So if you were comfortable owning Bitcoin just a few months ago, ask yourself, has anything fundamentally changed about it other than a dip in the price over the weekend? And I'm going to leave it at that. So guys, I'm going to wrap up here. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please do hit like, subscribe, and share. If you're listening to this on the pod, then of course, please do share that on your social media links. If you want to help out the show in another way, you can do a few things. Of course, the sponsors I mentioned before, LEDN and Ryze Wallet, are linked down below. But also, Paxful is a partner of the show. This is an online marketplace where you can buy and or sell Bitcoin. They have they have well over 300 different payment methods. So super useful if you cannot utilize traditional payment methods to get Bitcoin. This is an excellent way to do it. And it's peer-to-peer. So you're dealing with other individuals. It's also a great way to get killer deals on heavily discounted gift cards. Some of the discounts on here are absolutely insane. Like I'm talking like 20, 30, 40% for like Amazon, Starbucks, Walmart. Like it's ridiculous. So be sure to check them out. There's a link in the description down below. They've also got a pretty awesome affiliate program too, if you want to check that out and you want to make a little bit of money either flipping Bitcoin or working with other affiliates. And other than that, if you really like what you saw, you can always drop me a Lightning Network tip at my tippin.me page, tippin.me/@BTC sessions. Yeah, it's always nice to see a few sats show up there. So thank you guys, anybody who has dropped sats there before. With that, I'm out. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Try not to panic too much. And I will see you guys next time for your daily session.